All right, Gracie, let's take a look at your paper. MLA format first. This has got to be the same size font as the rest of your paper. Your name, my name with a space there. This is your class, so this should say AP Literature. No comma right there. Hide your fires or get burnt. Actually really love that quote or that title, so good job on that. But then you start. See, this is where I'm little bit. I love that title, but then you start with that quote that it directly comes from. So it's like hide your fires, stars, hide your fires. You see how that repetition can get tiresome. So I like that, and I think you need to use this quote at some point, but I don't know. It's just too close to each other. This is not cited correctly. We talked about in class how to do that, so ask me or figure that out. Now, you bring up this quote by Macbeth, so when we write Macbeth, his B isn't capitalized, so you can just make that the lowercase b like you do down here, okay? You can't mention who says a quote from a play without mentioning the play too. So this quote by Macbeth in William Shakespeare's play Macbeth perfectly describes the true feelings he has. This is a weak way to set this quote up. Remember, we're building a theme in here. So really weak way to set this up. I really want to see a strong I already told you I don't want to see this quote here, right here. So we're going to think of something different anyway. But I really want to see you build up this theme of hiding who we really are because of our sort of inner demons or inner desires that might not be so great. The black desires, right? These are the feelings of a true tragic hero. His reliance on his prophecies, his arrogance, and his ambition deflect pain and suffering onto others and onto himself, which is good. And I'm assuming these are your main points: his prophecies, his arrogance, and ambition deflect pain onto others. But I really haven't got a sense for what your actual topic of your paper is. So here is where we need to elongate that and really try to figure out what that is. Thesis sentence needs to be underlined, and your thesis really is just plot. His overconfidence leads him to neglect those who are closest to him, causing the destruction of his relationships and his life. That's more plot. It's not really a message that you're trying to send. I like the idea of neglect. I think you can build off that concept. And really, you've already said the destruction of the relationships. You already said that he makes other people suffer and himself suffer. So it's almost redundant. The other thing that I will tell you, Gracie, there's no way you should have a paragraph that's this short, especially an introduction. For the AP test, sure, this might make sense. But for a essay that you took 2.5 weeks to write, it's got to be way more than just that. I mean, look how short your sentences are in here. It's rare that you have a sentence that goes beyond a line, so you got to really make sure that you're doing better at that. So based on your introduction, Gracie, this paragraph really should be about his overconfidence on his prophecies. So his reliance on his prophecies and his overconfidence. So this whole thing should be about his overconfidence in his prophecies. But I don't necessarily get that out of here. The very moment that Macbeth heard his prophecy, he automatically believed that everything would be given to him. I wouldn't say at the very moment he heard his prophecies. At the very moment he heard his prophecies, he couldn't believe them. He was shocked by them. But so I don't think that statement's even accurate right off the bat. He's a little hesitant as to how true these prophecies really are. Now, again, you focus almost exclusively on the second set of prophecies in this paragraph. Yet you're talking about the first ones at the beginning here. So why not break them down a little bit? Maybe talk about his first prophecies and then his second set of prophecies, and that way you can kind of explain both. No joke, that kind of changes the tone of the piece. I don't know, that's a good word choice. This causes him to care about things a little less because he has the prophecies to fall back on. Now again, now you're talking about the second set of prophecies, but you haven't got to that chronologically in here. That is until he realizes what he must do to make his last prophecy come true. Now you're back talking about the first set of prophecies. Once the murder of Duncan has occurred and Macbeth receives his second set of prophecies, now we're jumping ahead, he starts to really, to get rid of really, rely on the witch's word. So there's that needs to be possessive, the witch's word, to get him through the rest of his life, which is, again, the second set of prophecies. Then you jump into a quote that isn't even about the prophecies, although I like how you tied it in. I've almost forgot the taste of fears. He has been confident, and so you are getting into a little bit of his overconfidence, so that's good. But I don't get a sense that you even got into confidence yet until this point. So now you're just now talking about confidence. So much so that he starts to leave those who care about him behind. Is it safe to say Lady Macbeth didn't necessarily care about Macbeth, but only about her and her standing? I mean, she calls him a coward and kind of forces him to kill the king. So I'm not exactly sure that Lady Macbeth was this doting wife that just cared about him so much. And then you jump into an example of this is she should have died hereafter. This is the again, get rid of very and really, very careless reaction he gives when he's in front of his wife's death. He's saying that he knew he would die shortly or she would die shortly. He just thought it would be after the battle. But again, how is that analysis? What is this really analyzing about confidence? When people rely on certain things to get them by, they forget about the things that matter the most and start to become a little too confident. But again, I don't know what that has to do with your topic. It's supposed to be about the prophecies. So where's the focus on the prophecies in here, and what that has to do? So, I mean, really, Gracie, we just need to organize this paragraph a little bit more. The say, show, mean pattern. Really strong topic sentence. Embedded quote, which these are not embedded quotes that you have here. You have, the wrong citation as well. And then start to get into analysis of what it ultimately means, which is tying it into the thesis statement. All right, Gracie. Due to his arrogance, Macbeth worries only about his kingship and less about his loved ones. So this paragraph is about arrogance. But I don't see arrogance really as a byproduct of this paragraph. I feel like this paragraph is all over the place. Some things are simply either not true or worded in a way that makes them not true. And you look at, it's not until Macbeth is told that he'll be the next king that he starts to push their friendship to the back burner. So no comma there. Jealousy of Macbeth causes Banquo to grow distant. I don't think that's at all true. I don't think he's jealous of Macbeth at all. He's suspicious of him, which you say later on when he says soon starts to become suspicious. But the murder of Duncan is what truly sparks the flame of envy and disappointment. But again, he's not envious of Macbeth at all. He certainly, and I don't think disappointed is a right word. He downright thinks he murdered Duncan to get the kingship. So how is this Macbeth's arrogance? Like, and this is what I'm trying to get at. What are you trying to prove about arrogance with Macbeth and Banquo? Like, I know you're going to talk about Banquo as someone he kind of leaves in the dust as one of his sort of loved ones, in the thesis, but how is this getting into the concept of arrogance as well? Don't use you, in here. Another character who chooses neglect is Lady Macbeth. Which you would have to argue, your argument for this you pretty much already brought in up here, for how he neglects her. And even after the whole, after he gets Banquo's murderers to kill him, the whole be innocent of the knowledge, dearest Chuck, that is, again, neglecting his wife, but you don't bring that up in here. You got a capitalization here, you got a very here, you got to get rid of. Even after the prophecies are given to him, Macbeth still seems to be bossed around by his wife. Like, why is that significant that the prophecies are given to him and he's still bossed around? So think about that a little bit more too. And I like the idea that you bring on later on. Pushing Lady Macbeth to the side was Macbeth's way of trying to gain more control over his own life. But again, how does that, tie that back into arrogance? He tries to gain so much control that he's willing to do anything to keep his crown, and that includes murder, which we already know that. You already talked about that pretty extensively so far. So try to come up with some new analysis of that. And now that you've said everything in your essay, this last body paragraph is just redundant, because you're just talking about his ambition, which this whole thing is kind of about his ambition. So I don't know, everything just seems redundant. You're going to talk about the three main people he murdered with Duncan and Banquo and Macduff, but you're not really adding anything new to this. I mean, his first murder he commits is all his doing. You don't have a capitalization error there, although he has some sort of ambition at this point because he knows he will be king. Talk about his flaw of ambition at the end of Act 1. You can embed a quote right there, which you don't have any embedded quotes in this paragraph. So he develops his ambition to keep the crown. This means he'll get rid of anyone in his way, and he does just that. He murders Banquo, which you already talked about. But he's a threat. So I like this idea, but he's a threat. No matter who you are, again, we want to get rid of you. It is a problem that Banquo is becoming suspicious of Macbeth and the death of Duncan. So it is a problem that Banquo is becoming suspicious of Macbeth and the death of Duncan. So it's kind of awkwardly worded, but in that sense, you have to really talk about analysis. What does this all mean in relation to your thesis statement? Keep going back to what are you trying to prove in here? Because this part, he hires people to do it. You're trying to prove about Macbeth's ambition, allows his ambition to make him commit extreme and cruel acts. Yet, in this paragraph, you say, just goes to prove that Macbeth was not ambitious to kill his friend himself, but just needed the job to be done. So how is that being proven by your sentence up here? And I would argue that it's not. It is easy to realize Macbeth's ambition has just turned into evil. Again, what are you trying to prove in here? But then you get into the murder of Macduff's family was an excellent example of this. It's just simply due to the fact that Macbeth has lost it. I thought you said he turned into evil. So is it more of a, mental thing, or is it more of a pure evil thing? Where are you going with this? This is tabbed over too far. You need to start your conclusion with a restatement of your thesis statement, which is underlined. And you don't quite talk about all of your main points. So all of your main points, you get a sentence of summary so that you can really summarize what you've said. Now, I didn't think about this, but so you end it by going back to those black and deep desires, which is fine. Each and every human has something to hide, but it all depends on how far you'll go not to let the world to see your black and deep desires. Again, we have the yous in here that we have to get rid of. But how is that related to the theme about hiding our black and deep desires? Because that theme is interesting and could work with your topic, but you don't ever bring that up about hiding oneself and their desires. So I definitely think that's a missed opportunity that you could have tied that in. No works cited page. So that's going to work against you as well, Gracie. There are some good things in here, Gracie, but we just need to organize it better. We just need to tie it into our thesis better. A lot of simple mistakes we got to fix too. So hopefully we see a rewrite out of you.